Hi, everybody. David Nour on behalf of the sales community. Welcome to this week's Tech Sales Insights Live. I'm joined by my co-host, Randy Seidl, sales community founder and CEO. Hello, Randy.
Hey, Nour. How you doing?
Doing great, thanks. Good to see you.
Great to be seen. I am very excited. This is, I think, our 34th episode. It will be confrontational. For those that don't know Chris, he's one in a million in a lot of great ways. So this will definitely be eventful and exciting. So for those that are logging on, feel free to pass it around. There's going to be tons of words of wisdom. And just in case I forget to give a plug later on, for those that are not members of sales community, please check us out. You can learn more so you can sell more. We've got a free 30-day trial, salescommunity.com. It's fantastic. And really look forward to the next 45 minutes here with Chris.
So as Randy was kind enough to mention, our guest today, Chris Lynch, CEO and Chairman of AtScale. Hello, Chris.
Hey, gentlemen. How are you?
Great. We're doing great. Good to see you. For those that may not know as much about you and your background, can you just briefly give us a glimpse into where you've been and some of the highlights of what you've done?
Sure. I'm a career sales guy masquerading as a CEO. Most of my career has been in sales, marketing roles, and as an entrepreneur, I've built 4 companies, raised, let's say $500 million and delivered $7 billion in returns on those companies. And my latest project is AtScale, and I will have a few wardrobe changes, so I'll warn people ahead so they may want to look away. But the only way I'm going to, at 58, the only way I'm going to remember all this is if I have shirts to cue the different things I want to tell you guys about.
Got it. So for our audience, I'm the only one that doesn't look like the two of them, longtime friends and colleagues. So, Chris, talk about AtScale. What do you do? Big data seems to be a buzzword. Why does it matter more so in the post-pandemic world, particularly when it comes to better decision-making?
Great question, David. So the way I view it is Fortune 2000 companies, they have what we call lots of data. They assume that's big data, but sort of the concepts around big data is how do you create one logical view of all of a company's data? Today, the Fortune 2000 have islands of data that aren't connected, so they aren't able to leverage their second most valuable resource, which is data. First being people, obviously, that create the data, analyze it, and use it to make and save money for their companies. So what AtScale does is we're a virtual semantic layer. So we create one logical view of all a corporation's data. We leave it wherever it is. And this abstraction layer translates between the BI tool of your choice and whatever system, whether it's behind the firewall or in the cloud. We create one logical view that allows you to harness all the power of a corporation's data to get competitive advantage.
Is that where that idea of self-service analytics comes from?
Correct. The idea is that analytics are, for us to advance and take advantage of all this data, we need to democratize it and push analytics down to every user to empower employees to make the best decisions and execute on the analytics that they get to create time to value advantage. And today, basically, you have sort of the ivory tower where all the data scientists live and all the smart people. But the problem is the smart people analyze the data, but it's kind of like the coach on the sidelines of a football team, right? They're drawing all the X and O's, but at the end of the day, the players got to play. And we allow the players to play at their best because we arm them with the right data at the right time to create actionable insights.
So talk about this pandemic. Are there some trends you're seeing that you believe are going to continue to bolster AtScale success? And you know where I'm going with this. Are there some that you've observed that you believe could threaten it?
So the first one is that data has no geographic bounds. So leveraging data in a pandemic, the companies that had a good data digitalization strategy they didn't only survive through the pandemic, they thrived. And I think that's a trend that you're going to continue to see amplified. In terms of threats to what we're doing, I think the threat is if you don't continue to innovate and leverage the tools that are out there to allow people to, my view is more structure allows more freedom. And that sounds counterintuitive. People think, wow, I've got like Big Brother watching and all this. But for our employees, they've actually, through the pandemic, we've seen a step function increase in productivity in every functional area. So what we've done is we've used data and tools like Jira and Slack and you name it to regiment the process functionally, the things we have to do, but empower people with the freedom to do it where and when they want to do it. And in my experience at AtScale anyway, and I'd say with our customers, people are working longer, harder, smarter, and frankly, are more satisfied because they're getting immediate impact on the results of their activities.
Randy, to build on Chris's comments, you interact with a lot of leaders. What's missing in these organizations when it comes to turning that raw big data into actionable insights, into better decision-making, into better, more appropriate hiring of the right talent to kind of contribute to the team? What's missing when it comes to big data and this idea of actionable analytics?
Yeah, I think it's probably having it be kind of truly looking forward. I think too often within the, I'll call it the general, operations function on the sales side or revenue ops, everything is kind of looking the rear view mirror back. And the trick with the best leading edge, BI in terms of how it can help and leveraging in our artificial intelligence is, okay, how can it help you forecast and see what's coming? So if you're going to have you mentioned specifically on the sales side, I'll make it up. If you think you're going to be having demand or more customers in the Pacific Northwest, okay, I have to go hire extra reps. I got to do that now, because if that's going to happen 6 months from now, you got to be hiring now. You have to onboard them in 3 months. That way, then they're ready to go in 6 months. If you wait until you know that in 6 months, then you're going to be kind of 6 or 9 months behind.
So definitely the need for more predictive. And how do we look ahead and anticipate key trends we believe are going to impact the business based on the data?
Absolutely.
So, Chris, you've hired a lot of great sales reps. You've been around a lot of great sales reps and managers. Obviously, there's a lot of great sales reps in the sales community. Are there some attributes you interview for early on in the process that you believe become predictors of great success down the road?
Before I answer that, I have hired a lot of salespeople. I've also fired a lot. So the ones I hire, right, that are legit or they fool me, they have what I call the X factor. I think in sales, there's no substitute for effort, persistence, character, honesty, things that aren't necessarily associated with salespeople. The best salespeople build lasting relationships, and they understand the value of reciprocity, making sure that it's good for their customers and good for them and their company. And, frankly, my career has been built on my customers. And I probably, in all of my endeavors over 30 years, have been selling to the same 25 to 50 individuals my entire career. So you can't think about it as one transaction, right? Because at the end of the day, it's a long life in a small world. And you can screw everybody once, but you run out of people to screw. So that's one. Two, I think the truth works. And with age, you figure out that you can take the scenic route or the direct route, but you're going to get there. So the attributes are, character, people of character, integrity, work ethic, honesty. Because guess what? Authenticity is the strongest, most powerful sales tool you ever have. And I'll give you one glaring example. I'm going to embarrass Randy here because he's always finding me. He's one of these people, it takes one to know one. And he's got an innate capability of finding people that don't know they're salespeople yet. And one example is this guy we were just talking about before we went on air. I'm going to embarrass him, Charlie Hitch. And I love all my guys, but this kid stands out because the day he walked in, I said, I'm going to be working for him someday. and he's right out of school, but he has the ambition. And when everyone else is going to the bars in Southie, he's there preparing for the next day. He's working. My view is between, 8 and 6, you do what you do to keep your job if you're efficient and good at it. What you do after 6 is how you get the next job. And nobody told this kid that. He just was born with it, right? And he walked in. I didn't have to tell him. I tell all these kids. It's been a challenging year with the pandemic. Imagine coming out of college, right? And then you're walking into a job, right? A job where it's kind of like not going to class. You're sitting in your dorm room. And I can tell you, frankly, a number of kids didn't make it because it was just too much responsibility, too much freedom, and no discipline. So they thought they were still in college, where you get, an A for effort, right? And sales, you measure by result. You work 20 hours a day, and you're 10% of your quota. You know what happens, right? So, to answer your question, it's character, work ethic, ambition, emotional intelligence. Those are the things. It's not rocket science, but it's surprising how people, miss the boat. And I think that a lot of smart people over-engineer it. It's people, right? You sell to people the way you buy. I'm a consumer of stuff. I know how I want to be treated.
Chris, how would your response change if I asked you about great sales managers or leaders?
So the change would be leaders have followers. And it's interesting because that's the first thing. When Charlie asked me, we were at the rooftop of the Envoy Hotel, sort of when they all started. And the guy's got me in the corner and he's asking me about so how do I become you when I grow up? I want to be a sales leader. This is a week on the job. I said, leaders have followers. Be the informal leader of the team. Go recruit people that are better than you. I subscribe to the 10-9-8 principle. 10s hire 9s, 9s hire 8s. So if you hire a lot of 5s, I know that you said this is not XXX or R, it's PG. So I won't say what happened, but I'll say you're screwed. I would have said something else. But really, you'll beat me up if I do.
So be that informal leader. Go recruit people that are better than you. What else? What is that sales manager, sales leader demonstrating early on that makes you want to double down on their success?
Team first. I look for people that are selfless, that are enabling their team. They put them first. They're not, hey, look what I did, boss. Look what my guys did, right? And give them the tools and the encouragement and the kick in the ass when they need it. But build that trust that they know you're committed to their success. If you do that, they're going to die for you. They're going to be committed to yours.
So, Randy, Chris contributed a couple of chapters to the upcoming book.
Yes, he did. I have to take my glasses off. And for those watching, feel free to put in the chat box.
This is wardrobe change.
This has got to be a first.
There you go.
Not bad for 58.
It's
got to be a first.
Just
there we go. Sorry for those kids at home.
Yeah, close your eyes.
Anyway, so for those watching, feel free to put any questions in the chat. And Peter Bell made a nice comment previously around kind of all you've done for the entrepreneur and venture community around Boston, around the country. So he said Chris Lynch has done so much to help the Boston entrepreneurial community. Absolutely. So a couple things in my upcoming book. It's called Your Go-To Sales Advisor. The published date is July 6th. It has over 400 best practices. There's 100 of my advisory board folks like Chris Lynch that have submitted best practices. Walter Brown, who's a fantastic, probably originator of direct sales. We've got some great handbooks in there from him around sales, around sales managers, how to be best practices. I've got a bunch of 24 best practices. My co-author, Tony Jerry, has 50. So fantastic. And we'll be probably posting literally the next couple days. But anyway, so Chris, the first one is titled "It's a Long Life in a Small World." Can you maybe talk about what you mean there?
Sure. I think I did in part, repeat this. I'll repeat it, but I mentioned it earlier. I'm a big believer in you build relationships. You mentioned Peter Bell. I met Peter Bell. We had no real connection. I met him a long time ago, and the foundation of our relationship was built on a deal that we didn't do. And it was based on how he behaved. Reader's Digest was, I brought him a deal when he was in venture and I was an operator. And the guy, he liked the deal, but we didn't like all the guys who were trying to figure it out. And the guys went around me and said, well, Lynch isn't going to participate, but we still want to be in business with you. And he's like, you know what? I go home with who took me to the prom, period, end of story. And the fact that you would do something like that exposed a character issue. And like I talked about, you invest in people, whether you're a venture capitalist of Peter's note or you're a sales manager. So when I say long life, small world, it means you're going to run into people over the course of your career. Treat them right, treat them with respect. You're not always going to agree, but you can always be transparent. You can be honest. You can be earnest. And I can tell you in my career, I've helped a lot of people, and it always comes back to me tenfold. I've never done anything for anybody that hasn't come back to me tenfold. So that relationship started on a broke deal with Peter. Next thing I know, he puts me in Vertica. And Vertica is a company that we sold for a nice chunk of change to your old company, HP. That wouldn't have happened, right, if we didn't have that engagement, which didn't bear fruit. And that relationship is built. You know, I had back surgery at Stanford a couple of years ago. Peter's visiting me every freaking day, and he's a busy man, right? So the bonds you can build, right, are powerful. And as a salesperson, the most powerful thing you can do is engage a customer, a partner, and help them, not looking for an order in return. And I promise you'll get 100 orders over your lifetime because of that gesture. So that's what I mean by long life, small world.
And there's a second chapter.
Yes, there is. And I'd say probably everything you just said, we'd probably have a fight between us in terms of who's more helpful to who. But I think, you know, in everything you just said, it's been mutually respectful and beneficial between us as well. And I think that Vertica, when I was at HP, was probably the first time, if I remember right, when we actually met, right?
Well, you don't remember. And you guys
PG.
at any time. But the first time we met, before that, was with Peter Bell. It was at a cigar bar that I think is gone in the North End. And they said it was time to go. And I disagreed. You threw me over your shoulder, not in much better condition than me. And Peter directed us out with me over your shoulder. So that's the first time we met. The second time we met was when I was onboarding Vertica at HP, and you obviously were very helpful to me. And if we didn't know each other, if we didn't have that connection with Peter, you're probably like, okay, here's another startup asshole that I got to deal with. So it just shows you sort of that dynamic that exists with people.
Absolutely. Anyway, so I'm going to keep moving on here. And then your other one was the power of saying no, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and I think that applies to all of life, right? People are afraid to say no, and it complicates things. It goes back to sort of the truth works. You could take the scenic route or the direct route. At the end of the day, when you don't say no, first of all, with customers, right? I tell my guys, we love yes. At the end of the day, we can accept no. What kills you as a salesperson is maybe, right? Because you get happy ears, happy eyes. You're hoping that they'll do what you hope they'll do. And when they don't, you're disappointed holding the bag, right? So with salespeople, if you're not a fit at the right time, instead of pushing it and having no credibility with the customer, which then that's a relationship that doesn't progress. I've got a lot of people that say, you know what, we can't do that. And I'm not going to waste your time, and I'm not going to put you in peril because our product just isn't ready to do that. It will be in a year. I'll call you back. And when I do that, guess what? I walk in the door. because I was straight with them. I didn't waste their time. Ian, by the way, they didn't waste mine. So the power of no, particularly with young salespeople, because they want yes, they want to go back to tell their boss, hey, this is on the forecast, it's going to happen. And all they're doing, it's kind of like Charlie Brown and Lucy, right? And the sales rep's Charlie Brown and the customer's Lucy, right? How many times does Charlie Brown have to end up on his back, right, before he figures out, no, Lucy, I know that ain't gonna work. See you later. But he never does. And there's salespeople, that do that.
So I watched an interview where you described the difference between being a VC and an operator as, on one, I might be a coach. Now I'm back on the field as an operator, as a player. Do you prefer one over the other, and why? Okay.
So let me give you don't get nervous. I'm going to give you the exact quote, except I'm going to make it PG.
Thank you.
So
his definition of PG and ours is a little different. It's like,
okay, well, press the censor button. So what I used to say, now this is the PG version, is that when I was an operator, right, I was Johnny Depp. I was on the screen. I was the star. When you're a venture capitalist, your entrepreneurs are the star. So I'd rather get paid to be the star than be the executive producer.
Nice.
For me personally, right? For me personally, because I'm a control freak and I get excited. I want to be part of it more than the entrepreneur might like.
Love it. For our audience on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, you're listening to Chris Lynch, CEO and Chairman of AtScale. Incredible depth in both raising capital, but also creating enterprise value and guiding, if not stewarding, those business models to fantastic exits. Chris, you've talked, so I would encourage you to jump in with questions, comments. We'd love to hear from our audience as well. Chris,
nobody's asking me what's on my shirt. Who's this?
I was going there. I was going to the wardrobe change. So the first one was at AtScale. What's this one? This is
Data Robot.
Data Robot.
That Randy and I are affiliated with. It's a rocket ship. It's the only AI ML company that matters in the marketplace. We're 3-5 years ahead of companies like Google that are supposed to be the nice company. And we're the real nice company because we're democratizing AI and machine learning for the world. We're not keeping it for a group of people in Silicon Valley.
So for our audience, what does Data Robot do?
So Data Robot is a artificial intelligence machine learning company that builds predictive analytic models like Randy referred to, so that you can predict and optimize your business around data. So a good example that I was going to jump in on what Randy was articulating is the power of analytics and predictive analytics. If we keep it just in the sales lane for the purpose of this discussion, think about sales forecasting. Think about where and how you place headcount. What kind of headcount? Think about predicting churn and addressing it. All these things you can do with the power of data. People think that salespeople, it's sort of this emotional thing. It's all science. It's a different science. It's all about the data. The data tells you who to call, what to tell them. It's all data. And companies like Data Robot are able to do that in a way that no one else can in the world.
You brought up talent earlier. You brought up headcount. Do you believe, Chris, during this pandemic, it's become easier or more challenging to identify, interview, recruit, get on board exceptional talent?
So I think that it takes more effort and more work on the part of the employer. I think it also takes more effort and work on the part of the candidate, meaning that, however, to me, when a candidate passes through the test in COVID days, if you think about it, if I can convey to you that you should hire me and that I can help your company, and I can do that on a phone call, on a Zoom. My view is, as we hired this past year, imagine what's going to happen when you can go stand on their toes, grab them by the nose, and say, sign here.
That's the kinder, gentler way of approaching getting deals done.
No, that's what Randy does. I don't do that. I'm the kinder, gentler guy.
Got it. Let's talk about revenue operations and its impact. Chris, I'm going to date myself. Our rev ops, and Randy and I've chuckled about this, back in the day was, here's a call sheet, make 700 calls a day. You're lucky if you get them on the phone. Now there's all kinds of incredible insights to understand that buyer's journey and kind of what they're thinking, how they're deciding, where they're going, what's next in their process. Talk about that and the impact you see on real success of gaining market traction, particularly if you don't have the HP or the Oracle or the IBM or the Google brand name.
So I think that it's all about qualification and being able to build a profile of the kind of customer that will be that first one to buy a data robot, an AtScale, a threat stack, right? Superior functionality and technology, but like the old saying, because you're old enough, I'm old enough, and certainly Randy is, right? No one ever got fired for buying IBM. I started at digital. And what I used to say is, and no one got promoted either, right? So you've got to find the people, right? Like-minded people that have that ambition in their world to make a change. And they buy from startups, not because they have to, because they want to. And because there's a need in the market and they see an innovation and a first mover advantage for their company. And they know that, guess what? It's hard days to get those things to mature, et cetera. But at the end of the day, it's a game changer. Meaning, if everybody buys IBM, you have no competitive advantage. If you're first with an AtScale, a data robot, a threat stack, any of these companies, you have an opportunity to beat your competition and have them following you. Think about GE, Fidelity. Fidelity is a financial services company that built a moat around their business because they overinvested in technology on behalf of their customers. And those are the people you're looking for on a profile side. With respect to how technology is advanced and salespeople can use it, I'll tell you the biggest thing that I've learned in the last, let's say, 5 years is that the software is caught up with account-based marketing. So you can be very precise about who you're selling to, who in the organization cares about it, and why the business does. And that can be slightly different for every business, right? So one size doesn't fit all. And account-based marketing allows you to personalize the message, and leveraging companies like Data Robot, putting data, external data, third-party data, second-party data, which is your partner's data, and first-party, your own data. You put all that together, which you can with a virtual semantic layer. Do I have to take my shirt off and put AtScale on, or you got the idea?
We get the idea. We're good.
You take all that data and then you stick it into Data Robot, and boom, actual insight for sales guys.
So, Randy, I'm going to ask you to give Chris a chance to kind of think about this question for a second. You and I see a lot of startups. We see a lot of brilliant technologists that kind of get an idea off the ground. What would you say are the top 3 challenges that operators have? Because the capital is getting increasingly more accessible. There's no shortage of capital, right? I can go get that. What are the other top 3 challenges an operator struggles with in not just having the idea, but really developing it, gaining traction, and really creating scale?
Sure. A lot of things, but I'd say, for sure is product market fit. So figuring out, it's great to have an engineering person that says, hey, everybody's stupid, they should be buying this thing, but you have to have buyers, whether it's a, PLG, product-led growth model, or kind of a top-down executive model, but having some product market fit where you're actually providing value And in most cases, where a lot of us are probably more involved on the enterprise go-to-market sales side, really have an appropriate value proposition. So if you're in an elevator example with the CFO and you have 30 seconds, you're not going to be talking about 50 pages of slides of PowerPoint mumbo jumbo. It's going to be, how are we going to help you generate revenue, save money, get a competitive advantage, stay out of jail in the case of compliance. And assuming then you have that product market fit, then assuming you have a good roadmap, then is the whole kind of sales execution and getting all that done, which, as Chris and I have seen, has different levels of execution.
Chris, let me ask you. You've raised enormous amount of capital. You've built a ton of value. Are there consistent top 2-3 challenges you face with every one of these good-looking T-shirts you wear?
So I would say that the T-shirts I'm wearing are exceptions to the rule. The rule is too much money, too many entrepreneurs, and too few ideas. So unfortunately, entrepreneurship has been glamorized. It's really hard. And if your only goal is to make money, there are easier ways to make money. Go on Wall Street and manage a hedge fund or whatever, right? So at the end of the day, what I look for in entrepreneurs, and I'd say, Jeremy and Tom, the founders of Data Robot, and countless others that I've invested in, what they have in common is an unbridled enthusiasm for changing the world in some way in their domain. And that's a passion, that's a drive that they can't quit if they wanted to, right? And if you're only motivated by money, guess what? When it gets hard or it doesn't look lucrative, you go elsewhere, right? I've invested in companies where the guy would take my money and then 3/4 of a year in, he'd be like, oh, I just got an offer for $500,000 at Google. I got to do what's right for my family. I'm quitting. I grew up in the school of, Paul Ferry at Matrix. It's like, you take my money, you might fail, it's venture, but you fail, you succeed, or you die trying. And that's what I expect from my entrepreneurs. And if you look at my LinkedIn, you see, 19, 20 active companies, they all share that. I can't guarantee success, or I can guarantee those people get up every morning with one mission, and they're unwavering that mission no matter what is thrown in front of them. And I can tell you my own experience as an entrepreneur that every single one of the companies that if you look at that have been great successes, they failed multiple times before we succeeded.
For our audience, you're listening to Chris Lynch, CEO and Chairman of AtScale and long-term entrepreneur, investor, operator. Welcome you to and encourage you to jump in with questions of Chris about any facet of from data and data analytics to building and scaling a viable tech company. And it seems to be a endless plethora of ideas and perspectives. So talk about marketing and channels. Randy and I have had several guests and borderline love-hate relationship for some facets of what you see out there. Where do you invest in marketing? Where do you invest, and when do you invest in a channel to create that force multiplier? Talk about your perspective on those two fronts.
Sure. So I think that you have to understand your business first, right? And if you're still in the mode where you have to create the demand, then in my experience, a channel's too expensive to fulfill demand. And a common mistake for startups is they engage a channel too early. And what I mean by that is if you haven't figured out the recipe to sell your product, it's ridiculous to think that a channel can. So what happens is people sign up a bunch of channels, they invest in it, but the channel is only as good as the product and company behind it, right? So at the end of the day, first thing you have to assess is, do I have a product that's channel friendly, right? Do I have a simple scalable message? Do I have an easily integratable product? Is it stable, right? Is it differentiated so that for the reseller, there's enough margin in it to really dig in, to invest, to understand it, to learn it, right? If you don't have those things and you're signing up a channel and you're like just hoping that like they're going to drive revenue, you're whistling Dixie, right? So what happens is then there's a restart of the whole thing, and then they say, oh, the channel sucks, they don't do anything. Well, no, you don't have a product worthy of the channel. You don't have a product worthy of mass scale, right? So fix it, do your homework, and you go prove that you can sell it. So I like companies that in the startup phase, I'm not supportive of any of my companies engaging a channel until they've sold enough of the product that they can articulate to the channel, here's the value proposition, here's how I differentiated, here's who you call, all the basic stuff that salespeople know. We forget about it. We say, oh, here's this panacea. Let's get a channel. It's cheaper. There's no free lunch. You got to do the work, understand the customer's problem, the use case, etc. And you need to arm the channel with that. And if you do that, then a channel can scale your organization. It becomes a force multiplier.
Let me ask you the same question about marketing before I go, Randy. What's the role of marketing? When do you invest in? Where does that come in?
Yep. So similar problem for startups. They overinvest up front. So while you have a marketing person before you have a product, why do you have PR before you have a product? It like makes no sense, but everyone thinks like, okay, I need a VP of marketing. I need it. I need a PR firm. It's all horseshit, right? You build the product, right? You engage product marketing first, then external marketing when you've got something the market wants to hear. And they amplify that, the best ones. So again, it's about timing, right? And one size doesn't fit all. You have to be realistic of the stage of your company, where the product really is. Otherwise, you're just burning capital.
Randy, let me ask you, and then we're going to go to Jeff Kramer, who's got a question.
Excellent. So I guess two thoughts. One is on the channel side, I agree with everything that you said, but if you're a startup selling to a large global account, you almost need to have a channel partner to fulfill those early orders because they're already approved internally. So I assume you'd agree with that perspective, correct?
Yes.
All right. And then there we go. Sorry for getting those at home. And then on the marketing side, how do you see things evolving? So there's a CRO function that used to be just sales. Now they're kind of caring a lot more about the marketing side. You've got CMOs, but CMOs seem to be now separating more to that product management, internal-ish at roadmap side of things. And then the other side of the CMOs then are kind of that go-to-market aspect. Do you see those evolving as kind of together, separate? What do you foresee?
So I agree with the trend, meaning your statement about what is happening. I disagree that it should happen. So I've run sales and marketing. I've run sales. And obviously, as a CEO, I've been a victim of both. So what I would say is when I was running sales and marketing would always fall off the table, right? The big deal at Bank of America or Fidelity, right? You're the VP of sales. That's where you're focused. So I think it's really hard, but we're talking about early stage companies, growth companies, to do both well. Because I think one's interrupt driven and one, is really strategic and you need to be thinking the long view. So from my perspective, and including in my own company, I like to bifurcate the two functions, right? And have somebody that is thinking about long-term, how we take the customer experiences that we're getting, right? And institutionalize that knowledge and then amplify that message. And there's some people that could do it. I wasn't talented enough or disciplined enough to do it. So some people can. But I think in general, if people organize that way, they'll be disappointed because they think that at the end of the day, revenue rules. So you're always going to go to that. That's always the shiny object. So I think that's a way where marketing becomes, second rate, which long-term hurts a company. So I think like any company, you want to have a strong leader advocate for their function.
Randy, over to you.
Got it. And then what do you say to those CROs maybe at some of the larger companies, maybe kind of mid-size, still private, later stage, venture companies that say, hey, I'm getting strapped for resources. Marketing's kind of spending like a drunken sailor, so to speak, and they're really not accountable for proper metrics. And, I could do a lot better in terms of, making sure we get a better bang for the buck for the money and the OpEx that's, being spent there.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a common complaint and issue. So I think a couple ways. So first of all, back in our day, right, it was kind of like you didn't have the data, right? So if I was a CEO, you come like, hey, the marketing guy, the leads, the Glenn, what do you say? You say
Glenn Ross.
Yeah, those leads, right? It's a joke, right? And I'd say, Randy, you want a lead? Get on the fucking phone. Oops. Get on the damn phone, right? So at the end of the day, there has to be a trust and working relationship between sales marketing. But what's different today is you have sales ops. Growing up, I didn't have that. Now you get all the data, right? Sitting in Salesforce or Marketo or whatever you use, the data doesn't lie. So now you can print a report and say, Chris, this is what's happening. You know what? The take rate on these leads is terrible. So we're wasting resources calling the wrong customer, the wrong profile. So you have the data to coalesce sales and marketing in a way you never had before. So now it's not about Randy in sales versus David in marketing. It's like, hey, the data doesn't lie. And at AtScale, we have a saying, if it isn't in Salesforce, it didn't happen.
We got a question from Jeff Kramer.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Chris, with your expectations for how artificial intelligence will change the way you sell, how should sellers be positioning themselves to sell in a world where those analytics are common?
Well, I think the people growing up in this data-driven world have to embrace it. And there are definitely salespeople that view, using Salesforce as well. Now I've got Big Brother watching, inspection, all that. And those guys and gals have, they're going to plateau. So my view is you've got to embrace these tools, and companies like AtScale and DataRobot are delivering it in a way that the average user can take and use it in their function. So my view is if I was a sales rep up and coming, I would understand all these tools so that I could be more efficient with my time and more precise with my target, and all the data is there, right? So you can do it the hard way or the easy way. And to me, the easy way is looking at the data, being precise about your targets, which allows you a better success rate and way more efficiency. So I wouldn't be afraid of it. And I don't know if this was the sentiment behind the question, but my view is there's never going to be a replacement ever for the human condition, good, bad, or ugly. So salespeople aren't going to go away because we have these data. And I know they're like these chat bots and all that, but you know what? My view of that is that those are self-service products, meaning the buyer is the consumer of the product. They know it. So then you just get out of the way and you just expose them to the product. But guess what? Those jobs, in my opinion, aren't great sales jobs. Because I know if I had a self-service product, right, and DataRobot has one and we're working on one, that's a piece of our business. And the people that are involved in that are not making what the guy or gal is going to make that's doing the $3 million deal at the Fidelity or the Home Depot or, Morgan Stanley, right? Two different animals. So you want to be an enterprise account monster. There's that, in my view, that doesn't go away. And if you embrace the technology, then you scale at a level of efficiency that it's not going to be an issue.
Chris, throughout your own successful journey, are there some coaching or advice that you received that you believe has had a profound impact on shaping the manager, the leader, the operator, the successful VC that you've become?
Well, lots of it. So a couple things that my old man told me. It's not about how much money you make, it's how you live your life. And I thought that was right. I can think of my first mentor boss, Bob Ward at Digital, and he used to always say to us, "Don't change your luck." And I didn't know what he meant by that until I got a little bit older. You know, at 23, it didn't make any sense to me. And I think what he meant by that is we are blessed to be in this industry, to have the God-given capabilities to do what we do. And in our industry, people get confused with what people say they are and who they are. So, you know, you don't lose sight of who you are. And it truly isn't about how much money you make. It's how you live your life. My mom told me, accept nobody's definition of you but your own. And if I didn't listen to her, I'm not here. Because I'm not like you guys. I don't have a great educational pedigree. I'm 5'7", and I think I'm handsome, but no one else does, right? I'm not a 42 long, so nobody walks in the room and says, "Oh, there's the man." So between my years, I decided I was the man, and then I did what I had to do. And if I didn't have that advice, I would have listened to what people told me. Go sell used cars. And people told me that throughout my life. In high school, I was probably voted most likely to end up in jail or dead, right? So accept nobody's definition of you but your own. And that should be fueled by what you want to do, as long as you respect people.
Love that. So for our audience, you've been listening to Chris Lynch, CEO and chairman of AtScale, incredibly successful entrepreneur, raised a ton of capital, created enormous value. You would be remiss if you didn't check out AtScale, Data Robot. What's the latest wardrobe change? Hack Reduce?
This is Hack Reduce.
Yeah.
Hack Reduce and Hack Secure are two Boston-based communities. They're a nonprofit for the advancement of cybersecurity and for big data and analytics.
That's fantastic.
So,
Peter
now,
Bell.
out of COVID, we'll have more meetups and things and engage ideas and find the next great companies in Boston.
Peter Bell was exactly right. What an enormous amount of success and contribution to the Boston entrepreneurial community. Randy, I know Chris has got to move on, so we're going to politely thank him.
Wait.
There's one more for our audience. If you have missed
This is a record for shirt changes on a podcast.
30 seconds. You got to come on. You got to do
Guinness
this.
Book of World Records.
So remember, right? When you're successful, because you buy this book, and by the way, it's mandatory reading for all the salespeople in all my companies. We pre-order them. And when you make all that money, this is about Tech Tackles Cancer, where we fund research through St. Baldrick's, One Mission. And one of the things you have to remember about your success, if you don't share it, it ain't worth anything. So check out Tech Tackles Cancer. We were supposed to be at the House of Blues last year. We didn't do it. We're going to be there this year. You can count on I'll be shirtless and singing. Now, last but not least, near and dear to Randy's heart, I want to get one more shout out, and then you can cut me off.
You have a sales community shirt. I'll really be impressed.
You didn't give me one. You didn't give me one.
Right.
St. Sebastian's, where young men become leaders. And I can't tell you enough, and I'm a hard grader, and I give compliments. I throw them around like manhole covers. Mr. Burke and the team and faculty there, they were stellar through COVID. And I can tell you that I get inspired to do my job the way that they do theirs. And they don't have the glamour, they don't make the money, but they have a bigger impact than any of us could hope to have, because they're shaping the future with young men like my son, like Randy's sons. Incredible place. If you're anywhere, I would commute my kid from San Diego to Needham to go there. Incredible place.
Randy, what a testament to Chris's not just enormity of his success professionally, but his passion for making a difference in the Boston area, making a difference with St. Baldrick's. Bill Hogan, isn't that the same organization he shaved his head for?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I've witnessed, glad he said it, because I was going to say it is a charity, firsthand. It's, far, far more than anybody will ever know, but extremely generous. So, for those, he's obviously very humble, but I'd argue to those much is given, much is expected, and in his case, obviously very well earned. So I know Chris has to get on with it. So Chris, this was definitely a first in so many ways. So I can't thank you enough. Really fantastic. And as a reminder, this is put on by Sales Community. Please check us out, salescommunity.com. We have a free 30 days. And we have our book will be posted there pretty shortly. Fantastic. It's a must-read handbook for anybody in tech sales for sure, but I'd argue anybody in sales overall. And next week, Nour is going to be gallivanting, I think, on the vineyard. So I'm fortunate enough to have Peter Bell be interviewing me and talking about the book some more. So, Chris, thank you so much. Nour, as always, fantastic.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Thank you.